Hey guys, I wanted to do something a little bit different than I usually do. Um, I kind of want to get back into doing some more vlogs, but this time I want to talk about something a little bit more different. Where I want to talk about, I guess, my mental health and just kind of cataloging sort of how I've been the past few years, I guess. Um, where do I begin? Okay, so to start off, I'm someone that has been diagnosed with autism in the higher spectrum, as well as ADHD. For a long time, I was kind of a very troubled kid. By that I mean, it was hard for my mom and my dad to kind of take care of me because when I was a kid, I was one that would always kind of run around a lot. I basically ended up I was like a very hyperactive kid. Back then I was extremely skinny too, so there was that as well. But at the same time, I think I don't know. I had issues speaking, communicating until I was like 4 years old, and as I grew older, see what I started to notice was, I think I've become a more how do I put this? I become too laid back. To explain, see, the thing is that I think for a long time I've had an issue of either believing or falling for what others say to me. So I think the thing is that I've become like a people pleaser sort of. And I often do like a lot of really dumb shit for attention. Like either outlandish stuff or whatnot. And one of the things that I think is a thing I tend to do is I tend to often make jokes, or I tend to often say something just to be funny, but then sometimes I probably go too far with it without realizing, until someone tells me that I went too far with what I was saying. And the issue is that sometimes people have a hard time telling me these things because I'm someone with autism. It takes me a while to understand stuff. And that's something that I've always noticed about myself for a long time, where I often would do things just to basically get the attention or the approval of people. I have a bad past of doing this. So, to kind of explain, when I was in high school or middle school, I think, or even in elementary, I often got bullied a lot. And I wasn't really popular with a lot of the kids. Because, see, when I was in grade 4 up until I was in grade 12, I was in Kuwait. Before that, I was in America, where I basically had a lot of... I was in the special needs class. And in America, I was with people that I think were more accepting, I guess. I think because I was in smaller classes too, I did have some issues getting along with kids. I did have issues, communicating and whatnot, but at the very least, I at least had some people that were more so friendly with me. They were, we got along. We used to talk about, things that were part of, our interests that were very common. And then that basically was something that I noticed was, we basically had a bit of a common ground. But then when I came back to Kuwait, I had a lot of hard times just fitting in because of I think of either a cultural clash. The students were a lot more different than the ones in my previous school, and in Kuwait there was a lot more. I noticed that kids were more so violent with each other, and I felt like an outcast for a long time. Up until I was in grade 6 or 7, I didn't really have any friends I could basically whose house I could go over to, and I think I had an issue where two students would tell me to basically do something, and I would do it because I was gullible. I didn't see the thing is that sometimes I think this is an issue that I have. It could be something that has to do with autism, but I had an issue believing whether or not was basically telling me the truth. And I think because of that, because I've been that way for so long, I've had issues with trust where sometimes I either trust someone too little or I trust someone too much, and basically causes a lot of problems for me. I don't want to go too much into that, but like there would be students that would tell me to basically say something that's inappropriate, or there would be students that would tell me, hey, if you do this, I'll be your friend, and I would believe it immediately because I was someone that was lonely for a long time. And I often got in trouble with a lot of the teachers and whatnot. I think when I was in Kuwait, I got more in trouble in school quite often, and it caused a lot of problems for me between me and my mom, and I think and even some of the teachers too, from what I remember, were a lot more violent too with how they punished me, because there'd be times where I would even respond to some of the bullying, and I'd often get yelled at just for even responding to I got yelled at quite a bit too as a kid. And I think in a way it kind of just affected me in a very emotional manner where if someone yells at me, I become like a deer in headlights and I just basically freeze. And things kind of like just, I kind of get kind of like cold or something. And I get too startled too, especially considering I probably have an anxiety issue. I think I started developing anxiety later on. So, yeah, I basically was someone that didn't have a lot of friends until I met my friend Ahmed, who has been my friend for over 10 years at this point. But I would still get into fights. I would still get into issues where, excuse me, I think starting with I can't remember. I had this tendency of trying to be the funny guy for a long time, where I would say something inappropriate as a joke, or just to be funny whenever, I think I was in either middle school, or I think it started more so when I was in high school, where I remember I became the kid that was saying a lot of vulgar shit just to get approval or laughs from everybody. And after a while, that became like the staple of who I was. I was seen as the guy that was crazy, that was insane, and everybody would find that funny. But then I'd go home and I'd still just feel kind of alone. And in university, when I got into university, I still had behavioral issues too, where I would often say really crazy, wacky shit. Or I would often say really offensive or vulgar jokes because, again, I often would get reactions and I would get attention from that. And it often would stunt a lot of my ability to get anyone to kind of see me as anyone other than, I don't know. A lot of people ended up not liking me when I was in university, and that kind of screwed up my tendency of being able to make friends. And in a way that kind of, I don't know, I wasn't invited to a lot of stuff in university, and then I was just stuck being by myself, or just being stuck with people that I didn't really like being friends with. Like, I have people that I like that don't really like me too much, I guess, in a sense. And then there's people that I don't want to be friends with that often, want to hang out with me for some reason, and I don't really like that person. I don't want that person to be around me. Because I think, in a way, they kind of reflect a lot of the issues that I have, where I think, in a sense, but they're a lot more worse, I noticed, because I would try to tell them something that I don't want to talk about, and then they'd basically not really pay attention to what I'm saying. And it's hard for me to kind of like deal with stuff like that, especially when I'm kind of that person too. Even online, I often would do some really... When I became more or less active in Skype chats and Discord chats, I often would still be that same person that would do shit just to basically get attention. Because, it was kind of like this method of me trying to basically gain approval. See, my friend Vib basically put it as... my friend Vib113, he basically put it as me trying to join a trend because everyone else is doing it. But it was more so me trying to basically join along because I wanted to get approval. It's hard when you're basically seen as that guy that is seen as the person that just is trying too hard to please everyone. Especially considering I've had issues just basically fitting in for years. And I still feel lonely a little bit. I've wanted to basically fit in different groups in different cliques for years, but I think I've had so much issues that I just became very antisocial for a long time, where I just prefer to stay by myself. I don't want to sit with anybody else. And it kind of made me this very bitter person where I don't like sitting in social settings because I just don't feel like I fit in. And even when I'm forced to be... And the thing that upsets me the most is sometimes they force me to be in a social setting. And that just basically makes it even harder for me to be able to fit in. Because I don't understand how that works. I've always had difficulty understanding social cues. I've had difficulty understanding when something was acceptable or not. I think in a way that also kind of stunted my ability to be able to find a stable relationship because, again, I've always had issues just being able to fit in. Because I just wanted to be that guy that wanted to be accepted. And it's been hard just being accepted the way I am. Sometimes I think people just don't really want me around anymore. And the more and more I feel less welcome somewhere, the less tendency I have of being able to join in that social situation. It's something that I've always struggled with for years. When you're seen as like the outcast, or just that guy that everyone kind of is wary of. Even then, when someone just tells me they find me either too creepy or too awkward, just because I do something just to be accepted in that clique, it just affects me a lot too, because it basically just makes me feel like I'm not welcome anywhere. And even when somebody tells me, no, you're welcome, no, you're welcome, I have a hard time believing it because I've been used for most of my life to people just outcasting me. Because I've been like secluded. I've been sort of a recluse for years, honestly. It's something that I've struggled for years. See, another issue too is I've also been the kid that's been bullied quite a bit. You know, being bullied, and then also even being abused at home. Not really physically, but verbally, emotionally, mentally. It screws you up too in how you socialize, which I'll probably get into that in another vlog because I want to talk about that too, because I think I've sort of picked up on being able to I don't know. I think I picked up like some things that are very noticeable when you're basically being abused quite a bit. But anyway, I think that's all I have to talk about for now. I'll probably see you guys in the next vlog.